the blame for errors that Wasson had made and these other researchers had made that weren't his fault. And so, that's I'm glad you asked that, because it gave me a chance to go into this latest research. But there was one other point that you had asked me to go into. Can you remind me what that was?
Well, the thing is, Allegro makes some significant theories about the whole Christian religion. What he says, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, is that
Right.
never existed, that the apostles, their names are code names for Amanita Muscaria, most likely, or different.
Right. Well, probably the most difficult part of Allegro's theory is the code names part. Now, was there a mushroom cult in Christianity? I absolutely believe he was correct on that. Professor Carl Ruck from Boston University has shown that, beyond a doubt, Allegro was correct on that. Where we differ from Allegro, and Allegro was more of a pioneer. He was really one of the first to really seriously look at it. And so some of the things that we agree on are that we agree that Jesus is an anthropomorphism of the mushroom. We do agree with that. However, we also believe that the mushroom, or that the sun is an anthropomorphism, that there are many other correlations taken from other religions that are also made a part of the Jesus story, and not just the mushroom itself. So I think that Allegro was right in that the apostles were not real characters. We argue in our book that the 12 apostles were the 12 signs of the zodiac, and that Jesus is the sun in the sky on the macrocosm, with a symbolic microcosmic relationship with the mushroom on the microcosm. So we approach that area a little bit differently, but we basically further Allegro's findings in that area.
Allegro's findings were mostly linguistic.
Yes, his findings were mostly linguistic, and in fact, just before Gordon Wasson died, I should mention that you had said that these other researchers were against Allegro. Carl Ruck has actually come out in complete favor of Allegro recently and published an article called Fungus Redivivus, where he's come out in total support of Allegro's work. And he argues, and I say falsely, that Wasson changed his mind about Allegro, but he says that he had a private conversation with Wasson, that Wasson, before his death, changed his mind about Allegro's work and said it was correct, but I have found nothing to corroborate that. And so, anyway, the attacks on Allegro by these different researchers have waned over the years. You had the team of Dead Sea Scrolls experts who published the letter in the London Times against Allegro, but what we found when we looked at that was Allegro's book had almost 200 pages of footnotes, and the people who wrote the letter to the Times only had, from the day that Allegro's book was published until the day they wrote the letter, they only had 1 week to read, verify 200 pages worth of very academic and scholarly footnotes, and write the letter, which we don't think was possible. We don't think that anybody has ever given Allegro's citations a critical review. Everybody has just dismissed them out of hand. And unfortunately, Jonathan Ott fell into that trap because he and Wasson were close friends. So when Wasson attacked Allegro, Ott went with it. And what we found is that a lot of Wasson's statements were purely out of his own self-interest to protect his own 1000 BCE theory. If Allegro was correct, then that made Wasson automatically wrong, and it also put his book Soma into question if Allegro was right. So, we clarify that, or I clarify that in this new article that I've just completed.
Okay, one more question. This is a really interesting conversation, but could you also tell me, Allegro was one of the few people that translated the Dead Sea Scrolls. and most I don't know what the situation is now. Have all the Dead Sea Scrolls been translated yet or not?
Well, they have not all yet been translated. The majority of them have. Part of the problem was funding. The original Scrolls team, except for Allegro, sat on the Scrolls for 29 years, and none of the Scrolls came out until 1997, when the Huntington Library here in California released the photographs of the Scrolls against all of the original team's wishes. So, it's a good question if all of them have been translated or not. I don't believe all of them have. I believe there's probably still a lot of the Scrolls that are in fragments. Probably a lot of others are still missing. That people, that when the Scrolls were discovered, they were sold on the black market. I think even the New York Times ran ads for collectors to buy them. So a lot of the Scrolls went missing and things like that. So I don't know if we'll ever get them all translated, but I think probably the majority is or has been translated.
Okay, now just one more question before we end. The Christmas Day is coming soon. How do you think people celebrated this day? In a few words, thousands of years ago, and probably some small groups of people have done so throughout the history until this day. And in what way do you think this celebration should change in the future?
Well, I think I would love to see the celebration go back to a more traditional form of the Yuletide or Saturnalia celebrations, where the Yuletide, you got the Yule log, and the Yule log you burnt for 12 days, which brings up the 12 days of Christmas associated with the Epiphany and the Jewish 12 days of Hanukkah and things like that. But with the what I would like to see in the future would be a return to the 12 days of the Yuletide celebration and the Yule log. What that means is the death and rebirth, or the fire burning for the Yule log is in semblance of the death and rebirth of the sun. You burn the log for 12 days before Christmas, and then on Christmas Day you start a new fire symbolizing the new year. So it would be great to get away from the capitalistic, sales pitch holiday season and go back to a more traditional recognition of what these things were, and an appreciation for a life, and that's the real meaning of what Christmas is it's a celebration of the return of the sun and the return of the new year and of warmth and of fertility and the planting of the crops and everything that we associate with life. And the winter is ending, and it's technically in the middle of winter, but it's that's what the symbolism is about. It's about the birth of the new sun that's going to carry us for the next year, and I would like to see a return to the knowledge of the ancient traditions.
All right, Jan, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on.